Hello, you're on Public Spot. I'm George. Welcome back to this series on building a reusable set of Terraform modules. And today, I will be making the necessary changes to create a reusable Terraform module for my main load balancer resources. And so if this series and the content of this channel lines up with your interests, hit the subscribe button and join me in this journey of learning by doing. So, let's start coding. So let's get straight to it. On this terminal, I will create a new Git repository for my load balancer Terraform module. And because I need to create this eventually as a private module inside my Terraform registry, I will set the name of this repository to start with Terraform-AWS. And now I will cd to the new directory that's created by running that git command. And because I only need the load balancer directory inside my source repository, I will run this git command. And before I launch my VS Code in here to start making my code changes, I will clean up the Git cache on this local repository and reinitialize Git on this project. And now I will launch my VS Code and start making my code changes. All my Terraform code are sitting inside the LB directory. So I'm going to move all these files into the root of my repository and then delete the LB directory. While I'm here, I'm also not going to be needing my Terragrunt configuration file, so let me go ahead and delete that as well, and the tf-vars directory. The first change that I need to do is replace all references to WordPress, and so I'll open my main.tf. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for all instances of the word and replace these to a reference to a variable called system name. And then I will head to my variables.tf and define this new variable. And now back to my main.tf. On the first resource block on this file, which is the AWS Load Balancer, the internal property has a hard-coded value set to false. I'm going to set the source of this property to a variable, and then head to my variables.tf and define this new variable. And then I'm going to set a default value of false for this variable. Back to my main.tf. The load balancer type property is also set to a hard-coded value, so I'm going to set that to a variable as well. And then I'm going to head to my variables.tf and define that new variable. And then set the default value to application. Back to my main.tf. The next block that I need to update is the default VPC resource. So if I scroll all the way down that block, I will add a lifecycle property to make sure that this does not get recognized as a change resource when I run Terragrunt commands. The next resource to change is the AWS Load Balancer listener. This resource has a property called SSL policy, which has a hard-coded string value. I'm going to copy this value and set the source of the property to a variable. And now let me head to my variables.tf and define this and set a default value. Back to my main.tf. And if I head to the Load Balancer listener rule resource, the string that I set as the values for the host header has hard-coded values. I've already changed part of the string, which used to be WordPress. I also need to replace the rest of the string in here. I already have a variable defined for this, so I just need to replace this part of the string to reference the base domain variable. And now let me move to the next resource, which is the load balancer target group. This resource block has a property called port, which is currently set based on the value of the variable called nginx-port. I'm going to change the name of this variable to application port. And then I'm going to head to my variables.tf and change the name of that variable as well. I want this variable to be a required input to this module, so I'm going to remove the default value and then replace the description. The next step is to update the workspace prefix on my backend.tf. I will remove the word WordPress from the prefix field. And then on my VS Code Explorer, I will create a git ignore file to exclude the Terraform cache directory. So now let me head to my VS Code terminal and validate my changes. The validation went through with no issues, so I'm going to stage and commit my changes to my local repository. And now I'm going to head to my web browser, access my GitHub account, and then create a new repository. And then scroll all the way down this page, and then click Create Repository. And then I'm going to copy this section of the page, and then head back to my VS Code, and paste the commands that I just copied. And now that I have synced up my local repository with my new remote repository, I'm going to start running the commands to create a tag for release. And then I'll head back to my web browser, refresh this page, and head to the section on releases. Click on tags, and then select the tag that I just created. And then all the way to the right of this page, click Create Release from Tag. And then all the way down this page, click Publish Release. And now that I have a release ready to be published, I'll head over to my Terraform Cloud account and then select the right organization. Click on Registry at the top of the page. And then all the way to the right of this page, click Publish, Module, and then select the existing GitHub integration that I have set up. Select the repository that I need to publish, and then click Publish Module. With this new private Terraform module, I can now update the load balancer component on my existing ECS project to integrate with this private module. So let me head to my terminal. I will switch to my GitHub repository for my ECS project and run git pull to make sure that I have the latest code locally, and then create a branch for today's changes. And now I'm going to launch my VS Code. The component I'm changing here is the LB directory, so let me expand that, and then open my Terragrunt configuration file. I introduce a few input variables to my module, so on the inputs block, I will pass system name and set the value to WordPress, and also pass the application port and set it to 80. And at the top of this file is a section for my Terraform block, and I need to update the source property to point it to the new private module that I've created for my load balancer. And then back to my VS Code Explorer, I can now delete all the TF files in this directory and the TF-vars directory. And now I can go ahead and spin up my infrastructure stack. So on my VS Code terminal, I will set my AWS credentials, my default Terraform workspace, and my Terragrunt API token. So I have now exported my AWS credentials and set my default workspace as well as my Terragrunt integration token. And because I have made changes to how the Terraform workspace is created, I need to create the new workspace for my load balancer. And now I'm going to run Terragrunt plan for all my infrastructure stack. So my Terragrunt plan looks good. Now I'm going to apply my entire infrastructure stack. My Terragrunt apply is successful, and now I can verify if my WordPress application is still accessible after my changes to my load balancer component. And so let me switch to my browser and access my WordPress application. And it still works. And that's it. I hope you stay tuned as I continue my quest to learning by doing all things cloud technology. In the meantime, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below and send me some likes if you find this useful. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like the content on this channel. And as always, keep learning and stay safe. See ya.